How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. I want to go through some of the big predictions for next year in crypto, but then also talk about what Bitcoin looks like 20 years out. I recently had a baby, and it got me thinking, okay, where's Bitcoin going to be when they start to appreciate money? Like, what is it going to be valued at? And I looked at 5 different scenarios from, pretty bearish, I think, to pretty bullish, extremely bullish, and then looked at, if you could get your hands on a decent amount of Bitcoin, what would that look like? And what would the inflation adjusted value be? So we'll be going through those scenarios here today. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this. Also, if you want to trade crypto, there's a link underneath the video to Blofin. As you can see, I had about 4,000 USDT as collateral. I turned it into about 24,000 on this BTC trade. I've been doing this for a while, and this was a fairly conservative trade as far as leverage goes. It's a 5x. And this was when Bitcoin had traded down from 72 down to 55,000. So I was basically able to turn this amount of money, this 1/10 of a Bitcoin, into now a 1/4 of a Bitcoin, which we'll actually go through what a 1/4 of a Bitcoin means later. But if you want to sign up for Blofin, underneath the video, you also get access to this little welcome offer. Your loss, we cover. $100 refund bonus if you lose. There are certain restrictions on this, but definitely check this out underneath the video. It goes on through December 18 for the first 50 eligible users. Now, we had a couple big predictions here over the last couple days. Van Eck came out with their top 10 crypto predictions for 2025. We also have Bitwise's top predictions of 2025. So we'll be going through those in a little bit. But first, I want to cover some different predictions for 20 years into the future for Bitcoin. Where could Bitcoin be? What would this mean? If you had stacks in Bitcoin, what would it be valued at? All that kind of stuff. Again, we'll get to some of the next year predictions here in a second. But let's go through some of these. This first scenario, let me actually go to this. We have Bitcoin at $672,000. Again, 20 years in the future. Maybe you're 20 years old and you're thinking, okay, maybe I can retire at 40. Or maybe you're 35 and saying, I want to retire early at 55. This, I think, is, if you think Bitcoin's going to be around, I think this is a fairly bearish scenario for Bitcoin. I know that sounds crazy. That's a 7x from here, but I think this is fairly bearish if you think Bitcoin's going to still be around and not be at $0 in 20 years, because this is a compounded annual growth rate of 10%. It's actually slightly below what the S&P 500 has averaged recently. So this, again, a pretty bearish scenario. I know some people would say, no, it's going to 0, but you're probably not watching this video if you think that. Next scenario, round number of 1 million. This would bring it a compounded annual growth rate of about 12%. Okay, so a little bit higher, maybe closer to real estate when you lever it up. The kind of returns you can get there, a little bit better than the stock market. But this, honestly, I think is fairly conservative as well. The fact is, Bitcoin would be valued at about the same as gold when it hits 900,000. But if gold continues to grow, let's say gold continues to grow at 5% a year for the next 20 years, that means that gold will be worth about 2.65x what it is right now, which would mean that it would be worth almost $50 trillion. Okay, so it would still be, Bitcoin would still be less than half the size of gold in this scenario. It would be growing at just 12% annually, which it's grown historically around 50% or more. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Maybe more of a realistic scenario, a 20% compounded annual growth rate. This would bring it up to about $3.8 million. So we're getting up there, right? We're talking millions of dollars per Bitcoin. This would be assuming that we continue to go pretty fast. There's more adoption. This would put the market cap around, if I'm doing my math right off the top of my head, it would put it around $70 billion, $75 billion, something like that. So this is a large asset at this point. Keep in mind, though, we are 20 years into the future. So let's say some of the largest companies continue to grow, like an NVIDIA or something like that. Let's say they're growing at 12% or 15% a year in terms of stock price. Let's say 12% for the next 20 years. That means that they would be worth almost 30 trillion. So Bitcoin being a digital form of money, being valued about 2x that. I don't know if that's crazy or not. This would put it above the market cap of gold. If gold continues to grow at 5%, it would be worth about 1.5 times gold. But keep in mind, there are nations that are talking about stacking Bitcoin. There are nations that are mining Bitcoin. There are pensions and states, and everyone seems to want to get their hands on Bitcoin. So we don't know what true scarcity looks like on an asset, right? Gold, you can mine more of. There are new deposits found all the time. So I think this is a bullish scenario, definitely bullish, but I don't think it's an insane scenario to think we'll see a $3-4 million Bitcoin 20 years into the future. Keep in mind, 95%, 96%, 95% of the supply has come to the market in the last 15 years, and the price has gone from fractions of a penny to $100,000. So what happens when that last 5% takes 100 plus years to be mined? People have to go buy from willing sellers. This is Saylor's expectations. He says it could be around 13 million. I believe he made his prediction when Bitcoin was around 65 or 70,000. So I think at that point it was like a CAGR of 30%. Now it's looking like a CAGR of 27.5%. Starts at 50, then goes down to 40, then 30, then 20. But this would put it at $13 million. That's, again, what Saylor has said multiple times he thinks will happen by 2045. This is pulling away from various stores of wealth right now. And then let's go Super Bowl. Let's go super bullish scenario. $50 million. Why this? Well, this would put it, again, if I'm doing my math right, around $100 trillion market cap. No, more than that. I think 1 quadrillion market cap, which is just insane, right? It's a 36.5% CAGR, a 500x from here. A lot of people say this is crazy, but some of the Bitcoiners out there say this is possible. Fidelity has said in a research paper before that they could see a $1 billion Bitcoin. Again, this is if the world pretty much gets repriced or Bitcoin is the used currency across the world. Like if this is the reserve currency. So yeah, extremely bullish scenario, but I thought we should put it down here. Okay, what would this mean? What would this mean for investors? Well, if you had 0.25 Bitcoin and we went to this, I'll say bearish scenario of 700K, your 0.25 Bitcoin would be worth about $168,000. Not too bad, because right now it's worth $25,000. This $1 million scenario would obviously be worth $250K. And I'd say base case scenario of $3.8 million. Again, I think it's a little bit more bullish than base case, but like base bullish case of 20% CAGR, that would put your Bitcoin worth about $1 million. In Saylor's example, it would be worth about 3.25 million. And then in the super bullish case scenario, it'd be worth about 12.5 million. Now, what would this look like in terms of like today's value? Because it's great, but we have inflation, obviously. Assuming a 3% inflation rate, the equivalent of 0.25 Bitcoin at a $672,000 price, it would be about $93,000 in today's value. At $1 million Bitcoin, it would be about $138,000. At $3.8 million Bitcoin, it would be worth about $530,000. So your quarter of a Bitcoin could buy like the average house right now and actually give you $100,000 extra, because the average house is around $430,000, I believe, in the US. If it goes up to 13 million, we could see a value of about 1.8 million. So you'd be basically a multimillionaire with a quarter of Bitcoin. And then bullish case scenario, super bullish, $50 million per Bitcoin would put you at about $7 million in today's value, which would be enough to retire and spend the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So very bullish there if you're able to get to that point. Hopefully you can stack even more. I mean, if you're talking about whole coiner status, in some of these different scenarios here, you know, people would be surprised that you have a full Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's worth, you know, $700,000, that would be awesome for retirement. Not that you can necessarily retire off that, you know, even a $700,000 Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, you're not spending much of your Bitcoin each year if you're going to shave off a little bit to live. $1 million Bitcoin, same thing. Like it's great, but you're probably not retiring off that unless you move somewhere less expensive, or unless, you know, you want to get a little bit riskier with Bitcoin, or maybe the volatility slows down. So then sequence of return risk isn't really that big of an issue. $4 million Bitcoin, you could probably retire on one Bitcoin and spend, you know, the equivalent of $100,000 a year, a couple $100,000 a year. Based on the 4% rule, you could spend about $150,000 a year. $13 million Bitcoin, again, you can definitely retire with that. $50 million Bitcoin, yeah, you would be thought of as very wealthy. And there won't be many people that have a full Bitcoin, especially because some people that have a full Bitcoin now will probably take lifestyle chips and sell over time, right? If all of a sudden 10 years from now, Bitcoin's at $4 million, you better believe there are going to be some whole coiners that are selling to get into other assets or to diversify and that kind of thing. So these are the different scenarios, different predictions for 2045. Let's look at predictions for next year. Van Eck, top 10 crypto predictions for 2025. First prediction, crypto bull market hits a medium-term peak in Q1, sets new highs in Q4. So kind of like a dual peak scenario similar to 2021. We project Bitcoin to be valued at around 180,000, Ethereum to trade above 6,000, Solana to exceed 500, and Sui to surpass $10. So they're expecting Bitcoin to go up about 80%, Ethereum to go up 50%, which not a great return for that. I would rather buy Bitcoin, obviously, if they're right on there. Solana, they're expecting to go up over 100%, and then Sui about 100% to $10. Prediction 2, the US will embrace Bitcoin with a strategic reserve and increase crypto adoption. With new SEC leadership, multiple new spot crypto ETPs will be approved. Ethereum ETPs will include staking, while both Ethereum and Bitcoin ETPs will allow in-kind transactions and redemptions. Now, take a pause. Let me grab a drink. Let me know what you're drinking too. If you've made it this far, let me know. I'm drinking Samuel Adams Winter Lager. And write in the comments what you're drinking. And then also, what do you think the US is going to do in the next couple months in terms of a Bitcoin strategic reserve? Okay. I think when trying to, you know, come at this from a realistic perspective, I think there will be a strategic reserve that's announced. I think logically it would make sense to buy Bitcoin. Do I think they're going to do that right away? No. I think they're going to announce a strategic reserve that they're holding the Bitcoin, and then kind of leave the door open to buy Bitcoin in the future. But I think that will make a lot of Bitcoiners happy. And I also don't think it will piss off a lot of other people, because they probably won't even hear about it, besides if they're watching a financial website or something, or a financial show. They'll just hold on to the Bitcoin that they have right now. So they'll hold on to the 200,000 plus Bitcoin, see how it sits with everyone, and then possibly go out and start buying Bitcoin. But they're going to take a little bit of time. That's my prediction. Prediction number 3 for Van Eck. Value of tokenized securities exceeds 50 billion. Tokenized securities grew to 61% in 2024 to 12 billion, but most of that value is permission chains. We think 2025 will be a breakout year for tokenized securities to launch an open source blockchain as entities like BTCC explore bridging public and private blockchains. I think a lot of people would like that. If you could trade all the time, that would be really beneficial. And there are other benefits to it too. Stablecoins, they predict to triple their volume by 2025, tripling from the current $100 billion settlement volume per day right now. At this level, stablecoins would handle transactions equivalent to 5% of DTCC's daily volumes. This is following an 180% year-over-year growth in 2024. They also expect 1 million new AI agents to emerge. Think of AI agents as digital workers, autonomous software programs that execute tasks and make decisions on your behalf. Prediction 6, Bitcoin Layer 2s will reach 100,000 Bitcoin in total value locked, building on the explosive 600% growth that brought TVL to 30,000. I actually am investing in Core. You can see Core is the bottom here, the largest of all of these Bitcoin layer 2s. Ethereum blob space generates $1 billion in fees driven by explosive layer 2 adoption, roll-up optimization, and high fee use cases like tokenized assets and enterprise applications. DeFi hit all-time highs with 4 trillion DEX volumes and 200 billion total value locked. NFT trading volumes are projected to rebound to 30 billion in 2025, and DApp token narrows the performance gap with L1 tokens. Okay, let's move over to Bitwise Invest. They're one of the Bitcoin ETF providers as well. They expect Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana to hit new highs with Bitcoin trading above 200,000. So they're a little bit more bullish. Bitcoin ETFs will attract more flows in 2025 than they did in 2024. Right now, BlackRock's around 550,000 Bitcoin, I believe. So they're expecting BlackRock maybe not to hit 1 million, but the flows, the US dollar flows, to be higher. Coinbase will surpass Charles Schwab as the most valuable brokerage in the world, with its stock topping $700 per share. 2025 will be the year of the crypto IPO, with at least 5 crypto unicorns going public in the US. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. More crypto companies feel like they could go public under a more pro-crypto regime. Tokens launched by AI agents will spearhead a meme coin mania even bigger than in 2024. So it's similar to what Van Eck said with the AI agents, but yeah, that could be interesting. The number of countries holding Bitcoin will double. It's interesting too, the financialization of any meme right now. You can put your money behind, you can predict or bet money on anything, and then you can capitalize on it afterwards too. The number of countries holding Bitcoin will double. I've calculated that I think it's well over 5 countries right now that we know of have Bitcoin, like actively are putting resources to get more Bitcoin. So I think they're going to be a lot more publicly facing companies as well. Prediction number 7, Coinbase will enter the S&P 500 and MicroStrategy will enter the NASDAQ 100. We're actually supposed to know today if they're going to be added to the NASDAQ 100. The U.S. Department of Labor will relax its guidance against crypto in 401k plans, enabling billions of dollars to flow into crypto assets. This would be extremely bullish. Passively investing into crypto assets would bring prices much higher. Stablecoin assets will double to 400 billion as the US passes long-awaited stablecoin legislation. The value of tokenized real-world assets will surpass $50 billion as Wall Street's embrace of crypto intensifies. Yeah, they want to put everything on chain, basically. In 2029, Bitcoin will overtake the $18 trillion gold market and trade above 1 million per coin. Okay, so we were talking about 1 million Bitcoin in 2045 as kind of like a slightly bearish prediction. Bitwise is saying that could happen 15 years earlier. Okay, so I think, I was right to say that was a little bit bearish, right? Let me know your thoughts. I do think Bitcoin's going up much higher this cycle, and I think it's going to do really well over the coming 5, 10, 20 years. Let me know your thoughts. Again, I'm not making a prediction in terms of price, just laying out various scenarios, and you can kind of choose what you think is going to happen. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you want to trade crypto, there is the link underneath the video to Blofin. We're just chop solidating higher all the time. It's beautiful. There's going to be volatility, so be ready for anything. But if you want to check this out, there's a link underneath, and I'll see you all in the next one.